All right. Well, hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday. It is September 28th, 2021. Hope you guys are doing good. It's 6 o'clock Eastern Time. That means it's time for another blockchain update. Let's talk about what we got going on today. So, the first thing I want to start off with is kind of picking up where we left off last week and talking about what's going on in the crypto markets. It's been a crazy, crazy week. If you've been following the crypto markets at all, then you know the big news on Friday is that the Chinese government came out and basically outlawed all cryptocurrency transactions. So the first article we'll start off with comes from CNBC today, and I'll pick some good quotes out of here. China's central bank published a new document Friday spelling out tougher measures in its wider crypto crackdown, including souped-up systems to monitor crypto-related transactions. And basically on Friday, China's government, as I said, announced that all cryptocurrency transactions were legal. And in this article, there were some interesting quotes by David Lesperance. He says here he's a Toronto-based attorney who specializes in relocating wealthy crypto holders to other countries to avoid saving on taxes. So make whatever you want, whatever moral judgments you want about his profession. But he does have some interesting insights here. He said, Lesperance said the move is an attempt to freeze crypto assets so that holders can't legally do anything with them. Quote, along with not being able to do anything with an extremely volatile asset, my suspicion is that, like with Roosevelt and gold, the Chinese government will, quote unquote, offer them in the future to convert to yuan at a fixed market price. And what he's talking about is how China, the Chinese central bank specifically, has been experimenting with its own digital currency, the digital yuan or yuan. So very, very interesting there that maybe this move is really set up as a way to drive people towards using Chinese central banks issued digital currency. He says, I've been predicting this for a while as part of the Chinese government's moves to close out all potential competition to the incoming digital yuan. And this is kind of interesting because this has been in the news. Here's an article again from CNBC, goes back to the beginning of March of this year, March 4th, 2021, talking about how the Chinese bank has begun trials of the new yuan or digital yuan. Real world trials for the digital currency are currently taking place in a number of cities, including Shenzhen, Chengdu, and Suzhou. So this has been in the works for some time. It says here in the article that at least for the Chinese central bank, this was a project that began back in 2014. And this is really interesting when you consider just overall blockchain timelines. Remember that Ethereum didn't go live until July 2015. So a year after, presumably, when the Chinese central bank began working on their digital currency. And we always think of Ethereum as being the platform that really kind of opened the floodgates to being able to create your own coins and tokens, and it was. But this just shows in overall blockchain timelines really how ahead of the ball the Chinese government was in a lot of ways. And of course, this is interesting because here in the United States, the Federal Reserve has been talking about a digital dollar for quite some time. So is what's happening in China right now kind of a foreshadowing of what's going to happen here in the American markets? I would love to hear your thoughts on where you think all this is going. Do you think crypto prices are going to go up, go down? What do you think of some of the recent changes in the market? Also in the technology news today, Amazon has been announcing a number of new services and products. A lot of interesting stuff here. So amongst some of the new things that Amazon has introduced today, kind of a preview of what's coming up for the holiday shopping season. They have announced the Astro home robot. Amazon has announced its first smart thermostat. The Echo Show 15, basically an Amazon Echo device that you can hang on your wall like a picture. A Disney-themed Amazon Echo device known as Hey Disney. Amazon Glow, a video calling device that projects games that kids can play with other people. A fitness tracking device, and some others. This is really kind of interesting what Amazon is announcing, and also the part that they're not saying out loud, the quiet part. So let's start off and just talk about what they're announcing. First up is this Astro home robot. This is basically an Amazon Alexa device on wheels. It can roll around, do various things. It says here in the article, the robot can move on its own from room to room and is capable of navigating around objects on the floor or braking to avoid colliding with obstacles, such as a pet that moves into its path. So it doesn't crash into things, basically. And we got a quote here. It says, "I've had this robot in my home for about a year, and it does wonderful things." But then it really doesn't go on to explain what any of those wonderful things are. Anyway, for $1,000, if you wanted to have your own Amazon Echo on wheels because you don't want to walk to your Echo device, here you go. Good news. Also, we have an Amazon doorbell. This is kind of like the Ring doorbell, but Amazon now has their own. That's going to tie in with all of their services. This also is going to apparently tie in with drone delivery in the future. Amazon also announced a new fitness-focused smartwatch known as the Halo View. So this is designed to compete with the Fitbit, the Apple Watch, and the Samsung Galaxy Watch. And it says, of course, here the device comes with a free 1-year Amazon Halo subscription, which includes fitness classes delivered through video. Amazon says it will have hundreds of workouts. So of course, there's a cloud service to support all this. There's also a device for children that allow them to play games over video calls and more. Disney-themed device. What is really interesting is the part that Amazon isn't saying out loud, which is now they're collecting information about the temperature of your home, your physical fitness levels, what your children are doing, and what kind of activities they enjoy. This is a tremendous expansion in the amount of data that just one vendor is now presuming or hoping to collect about you. And as we've all seen, there can be some unintended consequences when we allow different vendors to collect different amounts of data about us. And this kind of gets me to what I really wanted to talk about today. You might remember Willie Sutton. Willie Sutton was a famous bank robber. And when asked by the FBI why he robbed banks, Sutton had a famous reply. He said, "Well, that's because that's where the money is." In other words, where else would I go to rob anything? I'll go to the bank. That's where they keep all the money. And this kind of ties into the last article I wanted to talk about, which is something that Tesla's doing right now. Tesla is getting ready to launch fully autonomous self-driving vehicles, what they term FSD, or full self-driving vehicles. And of course, Tesla, because this is still a beta program, they don't have full self-driving cars that can go out and autonomously, legally drive. There still needs to be a human there ready to take over. They want to be very careful in who they roll this new functionality out to. So they've started a program known as Safety Score Beta. And the Safety Score is part of Tesla's deployment of a request FSD beta button that would allow any driver to participate in Tesla's full self-driving or FSD beta test. When you opt in, your past 30 days of driving behavior is sent to Tesla, and for at least the next 7 days, your driving will be evaluated by a safety score system. And you can kind of monitor your score, and it explains the things that go into your score. So some of the things that might hurt your score is the number of forward collision warnings you get per 1,000 miles. This is when you're A car is about to hit something and it warns you, hey, hit the brakes, you're about to run into something. Maybe you're not paying attention or something came up on you suddenly. Every hard braking incident, so braking in excess of 0.3 Gs negative acceleration, counts as a hard braking incident. An aggressive turning incident, which is a lateral acceleration of over 0.4 Gs. Unsafe following distance. And the fifth and final metric they're looking at is forced autopilot disengagement. So if you have the Tesla Autopilot on and it disengages because maybe you haven't had your hands on the wheel in too long, it'll look at how many times that has happened. And this article talks about how on the surface, this seems like maybe some good things to monitor drivers by. But this may not really tell you whether or not a driver is safe. For example, it says here, if a kid or a dog or a monitor lizard bolts out in front of your car, then you're absolutely going to hit your brakes hard. In other words, an aggressive braking incident may not be a sign of a bad driver. It may be a sign of an attentive driver who is avoiding an accident. And same thing with aggressive turnings. Goes on to point out forward collision warnings are often triggered by things outside of the driver's control, someone running in front of the vehicle, a car running a red light, something like that. And this has caused drivers to game the system. So this gentleman on Twitter, Gary Black, was able to up his score from a 91 to 95. He says, okay, I'm up to 95 now by doing these following things: running yellow lights, parking myself instead of letting the valet park at the restaurant, not braking for the cyclist who crossed against the red at an intersection, rolling through stop signs, and finally, and maybe most amusingly, going around the block a few times before going home. By doing all of these things, he's been able to hack himself up from a 91 to a score of 95. Are these metrics really encouraging good driving behavior? Seems like maybe they're not. But what's really interesting, in the connection back to Willie Sutton and robbing banks because that's where all the money is, let's assume we can put all these concerns aside. And let's say Tesla actually did have a set of metrics which let them determine whether someone is a good driver or not. Just like all the data that Amazon's now attempting to collect about you, putting all this data into one repository, into a database, or into centralized technology is extremely risky. Imagine how attractive a database would be that had every driver in the country and their relative driving safety score within it. If you got a hold of that data, if you could manipulate that data, you could potentially seize a lot of power and earn a lot of profit from control over that data. Same thing with the consumer data that Amazon has about you. In a lot of ways, 2021 is shaping up to be the year of cybersecurity with incidents like the Colonial pipeline hack. What we're really starting to see is that centralization gives us a lot of benefits when it comes to speed and performance, but there's a big price we pay. And one of the prices we pay is when you centralize all your critical data into one place, you create a very attractive target for any potential attacker. And when you step outside the world of cryptocurrencies and start looking at larger blockchain use cases, this is one of the first things that jumps right out at you. Any way that we can use blockchain to help decentralize our data is going to be a huge win. Imagine if instead of Tesla collecting all this information about how safe its drivers are or are not operating their vehicles and putting that into one attractive centralized system, attractive for any kind of attacker or someone who wishes to work against the best interests of the network. Imagine instead that information was kept on every individual vehicle and it was decentralized. Well, then there wouldn't be any one single place that you as an attacker could go to get a hold of and potentially manipulate and take control of all of that data. So just something to think about. This is just something that we're starting to explore as a blockchain community. But there are a lot of cybersecurity ramifications for storing data in a decentralized fashion versus a centralized one. And in a lot of ways, this, I think, is going to be the solution to some of the cybersecurity problems we're starting to face and acknowledge. We've kind of reached the limit of the security that we can add into centralized systems. The future is really about, okay, what can we do when we start to decentralize our data? What kind of security benefits show up then? So anyway, those are just some of my thoughts here on this Tuesday blockchain update. As always, we're here for you guys as well. So if you have questions, comments, thoughts, anything you want answers to, we're here every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern. So be sure to join us in a couple days for our next blockchain update. Until then, I'm Chris Bennett, your blockchain beard guy. I'll see you guys next time.